966.
This is the 966, episode 36. Richard, my man, assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam. 36. We're a third of our way to 100. I'm looking forward. I hope we get there. I think we will.
We are crushing it on today's episode.
Yes, let us pat ourselves on the back. We are crushing it.
On today's episode, we're going to be scratching the surface on some issues affecting U.S. Saudi relations, both now and in the past, including the discussion of a poignant piece by Saudi Arabia's Prince Turki al-Faisal that appeared in the Saudi media this week. We'll also talk a little bit about some interesting data on the film industry in Saudi Arabia, another first ever art biennale in the kingdom, and of course, beach soccer training, one of those things that's not like the others. Before we lift off here, Richard, thanks to everyone for all their positive feedback, emails, shout outs. Just so great to see and hear. Holler at us at the 966podcast at gmail.com. And of course, follow us or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Richard, let's get going. What's your one big thing?
But before we do that, we're getting out there. We're turning up. The 966 is turning up in all sorts of sites and threads and that sort of thing. So we're getting out there.
It is really cool.
And just before I go, I just wanted everyone to know that Lucian says I sound good today.
You sound great.
And I think that's because I have a 2 shoebox lift on the microphone.
Oh, nice. Okay, good.
Yeah, I'd been going with the 1, but today's a 2 shoebox lift. So let's see if that's a big difference.
It sounds like a 2 shoebox lift on the mic day.
My one big thing, His Royal Highness, Prince Turki al-Faisal, former chief of Saudi Arabia's General Intelligence Directorate, ambassador to the UK as well as the United States, founder and trustee of the King Faisal Foundation, and chairman of the King Faisal Center for Research in Islamic Studies. Both of these, which are really highly regarded research and grand institutions. And Dr. Mark Thompson, who we've had and has spoken a lot, has done tremendous research on socioeconomics of Saudi Arabia, is with the King Faisal Center for Research in Islamic Studies. But Prince Turki wrote an article last week for the Arab News entitled, "America Should Laugh with the Kingdom, Not Scowl." Prince Turki, for those of our listeners who may not know it, holds a particularly elevated position in Saudi Arabia. His father, King Faisal, peace be upon him, is a revered figure for his leadership as well as his piety and integrity. King Faisal, if there were a Saudi Mount Rushmore, would certainly be on it. And the al-Faisal branch of the family in general is replete with accomplished, well-educated, and public-minded members. Prince Turki, in his own right, was an essential partner to the United States intelligence and security community while a member of the Saudi government and an effective and active diplomat representing Saudi Arabia with 2 of its most critical allies, the UK and US. As a private citizen, Prince Turki really occupies his own stratosphere in terms of speaking plainly while also being seen as plugged into prevailing Saudi government attitudes. Now, he will always say, "I'm not a representative of the government," but his views and perspectives really capture a lot of the zeitgeist, I think, in terms of not only the government, but the Saudi populace. And in fact, few, if any, Saudis have the reach and persuasive abilities of Prince Turki, which is why this article written for the Arab News is so interesting, and we recommend it to you highly. The context of the article is this. A Saudi TV comedy show recently did a satirical sketch portraying a President Biden character as alternately confused and sleepy during a speech, while a hapless Kamala Harris character tried to literally and figuratively prop him up. It's the sort of thing we see pretty much every weekend on SNL and any number of comedy programs in the U.S. The sketch, however, seemed to hit a nerve with U.S. media outlets, and much ado was made about how Saudi Arabia was not a friend of the U.S., or Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman had cleared the sketch to get back at President Biden for not meeting with him, or a slew of other perceived slights. Prince Turki aptly points out how hypocritical this response is, given the historical portrayal of Saudis and Arabs in American media. He writes, quote, "The portrayal of Arabs and Muslims in comedy, drama, adventure, and fantasy fictions goes beyond insults and denigration. The caricatures are reminiscent of how Jews are shown in anti-Semitic material. An Arab-Muslim character usually elicits derision and disgust, with an evil sneer on his face, a dagger around his waist, an unkempt white robe, a straggly beard, and piercing eyes with a dark shadow around them." He adds, quote, American politicians of all persuasions shoot arrows at the kingdom to criticize and demean. I'd like to add here that in terms of media coverage, Prince Turki noted how a recent Atlantic interview with Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman misrepresented what he said on a number of points. And I just want to add here, I hardly agree with this. And for those of you viewing this on YouTube, Lucian, I'd like to include a link to the full transcript of the interview, which was available. I'll send you the link. It was in Saudi Gazette.
You got it.
Please read it and form your own judgments. You'll find I was having a discussion with my two of my brother-in-laws this weekend, Easter weekend, about this very thing, because they asked me about the Atlantic article and said, let me send you the transcript, and I think you'll come away with a different opinion. For good measure, Prince Turki points out that U.S. oil policy pressuring Saudi Arabia to produce more, quote, omits to mention that it is the war in Ukraine, Western sanctions on Russia, and Biden's own energy policy that have contributed to the rise in oil prices, unquote. So that's the context of the article. Essentially, American overreaction to a Saudi comedy sketch. Like I said, it's an interesting read. In the larger picture, I think actually Prince Turki was very gentle in how he handled this. But here he is, an experienced diplomat with a distinguished track record of building ties with the U.S., is simply asking that America needs to be significantly more self-aware and work harder to be a better version of itself.
This is not just a really great piece. That was a very excellent summary, Richard. There's a lot of places to go here. But one of the things that I was just thinking about this, and there was another piece that came out today that was also quite poignant from Dr. Abdulaziz Al-Shuaig. Actually, you sent this to me, Richard. And it's basically talking about how the 30 Democratic members of the U.S. Congress, which sent a letter on to the president, I believe, to the Biden administration on Yemen,
right,
was just sort of completely missed the point, and it sort of seemed, anachronistic. As the author writes, so the timing of the congressman's letter was out of touch with the global scene, as the U.S. is soliciting the support of all countries, including American sworn adversaries, to help address the Ukraine crisis. It is counterproductive to publicly undermine U.S. relations with Saudi Arabia, one of the oldest and most reliable partners in this region. In terms of public diplomacy and real action, at times of crisis, there is a need to shore up support from allies and partners. Differences of opinion and more serious disagreements are normal in a decades-old relationship, such as the Saudi-American partnership. These things need to be handled, he writes, country to country, not through the media. So just going back to the Prince Turki piece, it really is amazing how thin-skinned the U.S. media is about something like this, while it's just very common. And in fact, the reason why there are so many misperceptions about Saudi Arabia, I believe, in the United States is because the American media is just behind the times. And we'll talk a little bit about that when it comes to terrorist financing. But let me kick it back over to you on that. I think this is just a really great piece. And I love how you said, just do yourself a favor and just read it and think about it. You don't have to agree with it, but it's a great piece, and Prince Turki is an excellent writer and always has been.
He is very articulate, very well spoken, and I think that's an excellent point, Lucian. And I think it's a good linkage with that article. Behind the times, it keeps coming back, doesn't it? We talk about this. It's I use the term outdated, and just to foreshadow a little bit, one of our yellows today will be about the report that Iran and Saudi Arabia are going to renew their dialogue. They're going to meet again, possibly later this month. And some of that, in the reporting on that, some of that is all right. So there's some good news coming out of Yemen. There's a 2-month truce. There's been a leadership change really initiated and structured by Saudi Arabia after an extensive conference with 1,000 representatives from Yemen. Obviously, not the Houthis didn't come. They didn't want to do it in Riyadh. Understood. And nonetheless, there's a new leadership council in Yemen. Iran's rhetoric is changing a little bit. But again, and this is our problem we've pointed out again, so much of our foreign policy, our national interests are informed and directed by domestic policy. And these 30 Democratic senators, I understand their point. I understand that they want to put certain issues to the fore in a relationship, but I think it's atrophied. I think it's not fully formed. I think it's outdated and reactive. And there's more and better things to be engaging with Saudi Arabia on now. And if you do that, you can also engage on these issues too. So anyway, I think your connection with of the two pieces was insightful.
Thank you. It happens very rarely, but
and by the way, in sort of putting together my thoughts on Prince Turki's speech, which is very good, I had to stop because there's so many things I wanted to go into. I started, going on about, thinking about, Saudi frustration with U.S. hypocrisy and double standards, and yes, they 100% do not support Russia's invasion of Ukraine, but nor did they support the U.S. invasion of Iraq. They 100% regret and lament the human, the cruelty being suffered by Ukrainians, just as they do the Palestinians. And they've seen the U.S. support Israel in all of his actions in the occupied territories for decades. So for them, it's a fuller picture. There's more involved than just being our ally. And I do believe they're our ally, and I do believe we'll get through this. But this is what I mean. These 30 Democratic senators only see one thing. Or Democrats, they only see one thing. They only see it from one perspective. This is sort of what Prince Turki is talking about. Just become a little more self-aware, please.
And how inappropriate is it for the United States and Americans and the U.S. media to lecture Saudi Arabia on press freedoms and, the lack of ability for Saudis to really say what they think, and then at the same time, out of the other side of their mouth, say, "We don't like you making fun of us." I mean, it's just like, I understand it, and I could see how it might seem a little insulting, but what the real insult actually is that our perception of Saudi Arabia is not even just as a little brother, but as a fifth or sixth little brother way down the line. And it's like, well, how do you think that feels for Saudis to hear? It's hard to really wrap your head around, and we could honestly go on this for another hour, because there's other things that this kind of ties into.
By the way, and Prince Turki mentions that in his in the article, in that the carrot and stick approach. He specifically says, look, in a carrot and stick approach. And this is I'll quote him. American politicians of all political persuasions shoot arrows at the kingdom to criticize and demean, even to the extent of calling for a carrot and stick approach to dealing with Saudi Arabia. I tell them that we are not school children who accept such chastisement and reward. Our friendship with the U.S. stems from our shared interest in finding peace in the Middle East, combating terrorism, and challenging Iran's aggressions, and it's declared animosity to both of us. There it is in a nutshell. Let's update the relationship. Let's update how we engage.
Just this piece is so good. And Prince Turki has done this, really since he retired. He's just so poignant, and he's so, he just really is, anyway, we're going to put this in the comments. We'll have a link to this article. Just check it out. And, it's just a really interesting piece and a really, really well-written, item. Fascinating. We hope to get Prince Turki on the program at some point soon. But
we do.
And my colleague here is working on that as we speak. So
we would be honored. It would be honored. But anyway, yes, we're hopeful he'll join us, and that would be a coup and a red letter day for the 966.
Indeed. My one big thing, and again, Richard, 2 weeks in a row, we're kind of matching our one big things, and this is accidental. This is not on purpose. New rules from the Saudi government have been put in place to make it harder for charities in Saudi Arabia to become donators to extremist causes both inside and outside of the kingdom. The Saudi public prosecution has banned the establishment of private websites to collect donations for charitable work outside the kingdom in an effort to stop funds being sent to terror groups. This is according to a report in the Saudi Okaz newspaper, which is in Arabic, relayed by the Middle East Monitor. A statement issued by the government body explained that the punishment for anyone who is proven to have committed a cybercrime by creating websites for terrorist organizations will be 10 years in jail and a fine of $1.3 million. the Saudi public prosecution affirmed that donations can only be made through, quote, official authorities concerned with receiving charitable relief and international humanitarian donations. Richard, I made this my one big thing this week because I feel like I still get a fair amount of questions and comments on Saudi Arabia and terrorist financing. And it's not just sort of hoi polloi haranguing, it's genuine interest. How is Saudi doing on curbing terrorist financing? Is it curbing terrorist financing after 9/11, of course? That was the big story, was not only that 15 of the 19 hijackers were Saudi, but that there was sort of an unregulated, Islamic finance, not Islamic financing, but using of Islamic charities to then wire money into nefarious hands. And this is just like we discussed. It's one of those things where perceptions now lag a little bit behind the reality today. It's one of the areas in which the U.S. and Saudi Arabia work most closely together. The State Department releases an annual report on terrorist financing every year, and the latest available shows really just all plaudits for Saudi Arabia. The U.S. And Saudi Arabia set up a terrorist financing targeting center. Saudi Arabia is a member of FATF and MENA FATF. Really, Saudi Arabia has all but defeated, and we talked with Colonel Brad Gandy about this, has all but defeated terrorism and extremism within its own borders, at least, from ISIS and Al-Qaeda. And now it's really working on making sure funds don't go abroad. Richard, you saw last year that Saudi Arabia announced that the kingdom will stop funding mosques in foreign countries. All of this stuff is just sort of like, it's not really widely known, but in fact, Saudi Arabia is now one of the toughest countries on terrorist financing out there. So I thought this new story, which came out this week, that they're taking the next step to prevent digital charities, online websites and the such from raising money from charitable Saudis during Ramadan, and really as with zakat as one of the 5 pillars of Islam. Just fascinating, and shows real actual change happening in Saudi Arabia right now on an important front.
I don't think I can add anything. I mean, that's really well done. And by the way, that's in Lucian does the featured P1 in our, what we call it, P1 feature in our daily newsletter, Sustig Review, which please do subscribe. It's free. And he did that today, and he captures a lot of that, even more so in this. I think you're right. There is Saudi, U.S. State Department does a country report on terrorism every year. Saudi Arabia for a long time has come up as a cooperative, supportive, deeply involved member of the global community, as a member, as you say, Financial Asset Action Task Force, as a member of the MENA Financial Asset Action Task Force, one of the founders of the Terrorist Financing Targeting Center. They're the ones who actually suggested it. It's based in Riyadh. It works closely with, this was founded in 2017, works closely with the U.S. And this is not, as you reference zakat, you reference Ramadan. So the act of giving is a fundamentally important part, charity, a fundamentally important part of being a Muslim. And for so many years, these were given, to organizations all over. Any organization would come to Saudi Arabia or make an appeal, and the problem was you really didn't know where that money went after you gave it. A lot of times you didn't know where the money went, and in many cases the money was used nefariously. On top of that, there were also some Saudi donors who were actively involved in trying to support these terrorist groups over time. And Saudi Arabia has just really aggressively and comprehensively addressed this issue. And I think it's interesting, sort of during Ramadan, there was an organized public official campaign, the Saudi Arabia's National Campaign for Charitable Work, Ehsan. And during Ramadan, it does a campaign to raise charity funds. Again, it's shutting down illegal, unauthorized avenues in terms of giving. And at the same time, it's creating easily accessible, public endorsed, easily monitored vehicles for charitable giving. So Ehsan, they raised $500 million in donations, in the first 9 days of Ramadan. Mm. And this will go, from 24 million transactions, and it will benefit, according to the report, over 4.5 million people. So it's shutting down the avenues on one side, has been, and is in very good position with regard to U.S. counterterrorism reports, and also giving charitable Saudis useful and easily access vehicles to perform a charitable act, which Muslims really feel very good and compelled to do.
We talk a lot about mutually aligned interests. This is not the United States telling Saudi Arabia, you have to do this. This is Saudi Arabia doing it because it benefits Saudi Arabia. Another reason why America should continue to support and invest in Vision 2030. It's the best tool Saudi has at countering extremism. Bored Saudis are not joining extremist groups as they did before economic and social reforms. There's stuff to do at home. There's a chance for them to fit into society, build a life and family. But Saudi Arabia is really doing this, I think, and this is just my opinion, but they're doing it because these charities that were unregulated and sent money abroad eventually finance Saudi Arabia's enemies. I mean, they're doing it out of their own interests, not because we're telling them to do it. And this is just one of those areas where, there's a lot of media coverage over the Biden snub and the, and oil and stuff. But like, no matter what, this is not changing. This is just getting stronger. This sort of U.S. Saudi partnership to fight terrorism financing. And this is why we can't just throw the relationship away because of, personal differences between, U.S. leaders in Saudi Arabia. But I just thought this was interesting. It's sort of like, for so long, and we talk about this all the time, Richard, there's a Khashoggi and a Yemen paragraph in almost every news report on Saudi Arabia. They're the top concerns or criticisms of Saudi Arabia in a news report. You sort of have to put them in. It used to be, school books and education and terrorism financing. And these are things that Saudi Arabia resolved or is working hard to resolve. So they're no longer at the top of their list of criticisms of Saudi Arabia. So, but there's no mission accomplished banner that we throw up for them. It's just they're doing it to make sure that there isn't homegrown terrorism financing in Saudi Arabia so that they can have a vibrant society.
Well put. I like that. I'm not gonna, tarnish that close. That was really nice.
Oh, thank you. All right. So we don't have a special guest this week, and that is because we have several weeks coming up where we have multiple special guests. And at some point, our brains might just short out from all this extra work.
I can't prepare for any more.
But we do have a couple of weeks coming up where we have some very, very exciting guests. So this week, we're just going to jump right into the Yalla section. Yalla. And we'll get
Saudi
you up to date on
Saudi
in a minute. We'll get you up to date on Saudi Arabia this week, headed into the weekend. And as always, my colleague here will kick us off.
By the way, the rare exception is when we don't have a guest nowadays, but it's kind of fun when it's just us.
It is. It's happened twice or three times so far in 36 episodes. So
I'm looking at the schedule, and it's not coming again anytime soon. So let's enjoy it. Number one, Yalla, Saudi in a minute. Saudi film industry. According to a report this week in Arab News, Saudi Arabia's Film Commission has licensed 56 theaters in 20 cities so far since its launch in April 2018. In those theaters, 1,144 films were shown, including 22 Saudi films. The number of ticket sales amounted to 30,860,956 for films in 22 languages from 38 countries.
Wow. 4,500 young Saudi men and women are employed now in this industry, which is just red hot and booming. I believe that one of the largest film companies in Saudi Arabia is about to IPO. I don't have that information in front of me, but
yes, movie. It's a homegrown, MUVI, homegrown MUVI. Saudi cinema thing. Homegrown, 2018. This is what we're talking about. Update your understanding of the country.
Yes, and I mean, this is obviously well known, but to start a cinema sector from nothing and to be here now is quite something with a global pandemic right in the middle of it. So Saudis love going to movies, and we've talked about this, Richard, when we would host some here. One of the things they'd love going to do is going to see big blockbuster movies. That's no longer happening anymore because they have them at home, but just really cool to see this. And more and more cinemas popping up all over the kingdom. Very exciting stuff.
And speaking of big blockbusters, some of these are coming down the pike that are produced and shot in Saudi Arabia. Kandahar, Desert Warrior, a couple of others that will be hitting the big screen, and we're talking big screens globally, which will be, they have significant Saudi involvement, investment, and also, as I said, were produced and shot in Saudi Arabia. Gerard Butler in Kandahar, Sir Ben Kingsley in Desert Warrior, as well as some others. But and also the guy who in Avengers, he's also in. Is that Desert Warrior? I think it is. Anyway, we'll get to that. But yes, so everything's changing. Take a look, pay attention, catch up.
And that's why we're doing Yella, to get you caught up before the weekend. In the Venn diagram, the Vision 2030 Venn diagram of economy and society, this is right in the middle. This is a new industry. There are a lot of opportunities for investors and for jobs, but it's also a quality of life thing. Vision 2030 is all about creating a better quality of life for Saudis and being able to go to the movie theaters on Friday nights, young Saudis being able to go on dates. Stuff like that is now happening in Saudi Arabia. Update your perceptions, like you just said. Yeah. Yella number 2, Saudi Arabia's stock market is the 6th hottest globally in 2022, according to Bloomberg data. As of this week in April, the TASI is up, the Tadawul All-Share Index is up 22% this year in dollar terms, 22%. Optimism for the Saudi economy in 2022 continues to grow on the back of higher oil prices and a kingdom well positioned to grow in the post-pandemic year.
Just keeps piling success on success. It's a nice run they're having, and especially with the revised economic forecast for 2022, upwards to over 7% by the World Bank. Everything's coming up roses. In today's Sustig review, I mentioned it again, an interesting video with Tariq Fadlallah, who's the Middle East CEO at Nomura Asset Management, talking about the Saudi Arabia as a stand-down economy and the reasons why. And also, the thing about the stock exchange moving along like this and everybody fired up is we've seen 16 listings in 2022, and there's over 70 applications pending. Just terrific way to make capital. The Tadawul is now a source of capital for private sector companies, either wanting to go wholly public or partially public. And on the other side, it allows Saudi and international investors to get a piece of the economy. It's just all good.
It's all good. That report you referenced, Richard, which talked about the GDP growth, what was interesting about that is they said it's not just the oil economy, which obviously is on fire right now, but it is the non-oil economy that is starting to really see some traction. And that's really what Saudi Arabia wants to see. The oil economy driving everything is good for now, but not good for the long term. And they realize that that's part of what Vision 2030 is all about. So, right. Really cool. Wish we had invested at some point. Dang it.
3. After a 7-month hiatus, senior Iranian and Saudi security officials are expected to resume their dialogue in Iraq later this week. Umwaj Media, which by the way does some good reporting, has learned this and reported on it. It's still speculative, but there seems to be good sources behind it. Speaking on conditions of anonymity, an informed Arab source has suggested that a 5th round of talks will be held on April 21st, tomorrow. The upcoming April 21st, attended by representatives appointed by the highest leadership of the two countries, unquote. The upcoming meeting will be a, quote, 3 or 4 hour session, unquote, held at the same venue as previous rounds of talks.
You talk about the El Dorado or crown jewel or the most highly sought after foreign policy détente that can happen in Saudi Arabia right now. It's with Iran. I don't know a lot about this, but this seems definitely like progress in the right direction.
100%. And it's better they're talking than not. It's better they're talking civilly than not. There is some movement on Yemen, which we mentioned. There's the 2-month truce, which was a surprise and well handled by the UN special envoy. Leadership change, again, engineered by the Saudis, that brought together, moved out Hadi and brought together a bunch of, I think, 6 or 7 different anti-Houthi factions, and with the mandate to try and find a political solution. I also add there was, again, in today's Sustic Review, this is third time, and it's because it's amazingly good curated source. I mean, it's read by, it's got 20,000 subscribers. It reaches 250,000 viewers. It's 250,000 views a month. People like it. People value it. One of the interesting articles today was by Ishtiaq Ahmed, and it's an opinion. It's basically finally a glimmer of hope in the Middle East, and in Arab news. And he's talking about the diplomatic movements that are going on in the region. It's particularly, he was focusing on Turkey and how they're sort of reconciling with Qatar and UAE, and I mean not Qatar, but UAE, Saudi, and by extension Egypt, and how important this is to the region to deconflict so many of these ongoing antagonisms. Obviously, the rift between Iran and Saudi Arabia runs deep, and it will probably never be fully bridged. But it's good that they're talking, and we talked about this in our episode last week as one of the positive things, coming along in the region. So good. I'm glad they're talking. They may have some good things to talk about on Yemen. And maybe there'll be a breakthrough there. Nobody gets their hopes up, gets out ahead of over their skis, as they say. But it's good that they're talking and have renewed discussions.
Looming over all of this, of course, is the Iran deal and the Biden administration trying to get that jump started again. Another topic that I haven't followed too closely, but that's sort of the big elephant in the room. But yeah, very interesting. Yeah. Yella number 4, cementing Saudi Arabia's status as a serious art powerhouse on the world stage. The Diriyah Biennale Foundation has announced its inaugural Islamic Arts Biennale, according to a report in Vogue Middle East. Quote, honoring the richness of the kingdom's creative heritage while championing innovation and fresh ideas, the Biennale will explore spirituality in the aesthetic realm and a diversity of artistic expressions. It will also provide new dialogues and insights by inviting international artists from around the world.
Actually, you showed admirable restraint. There are only 4 biennales in there. And I apart from its news value, I figured the opportunity to show off our mastery of biennale
I kind of
was the reason for this yellow.
I was like, should I keep reading this? I messed up the first one.
No, that was nice. Extremely, because as you mentioned, it's following on the Diriyah, extremely successful and well-attended Diriyah Biennale last in 2021. Keep it coming. It's the first, as you said, it's the first contemporary art Biennale. It was done in Riyadh, the Jax district. This is going to be done in Jeddah, which is great. Spread it around. One of the things they do well, and one of the things they did with the Diriyah Contemporary Art Biennale was bring in experts from all over the world. They have leading experts from London, from the U.S. Smithsonian Institution, from South Africa. This is really a tremendous way not only to bring art to the people, to celebrate art, to promote art, but also to get international involvement in the transformation of what's going on in Saudi Arabia, the art scene as well as any number of others, but in this instance, the art scene. I love that, like so much of what they're doing, they're not only, there's last year was the contemporary art. This one is Islamic art. So they're celebrating art in its entirety, and they're especially paying attention to cultural things that are important to them, like the Islamic art. This is just great. And it's an opportunity to say Biennale again.
Biennale. They announced co-curators for the Biennale, which will include Sumaya Valley, who is co-founder and principal of Counterspace, a collaborative architecture studio in South Africa. They are also participating in the Venice Biennale, which is coming up this summer, I believe. But just cool. I mean, just really cool stuff I'd love to see in person, but I mean, also stuff you can't imagine happening 5 years ago there. So it's just really nice story here.
Number 5, Yella number 5. Yahoo reports that Saudi Arabia is hosting an international competition, which is broadcast on official state TV during Ramadan, that features competitors using their voice alone, reciting the Holy Quran or delivering the Islamic call to prayer. More than 40,000 contestants from 80 countries have participated in, after several stages, 36 candidates from Britain, Canada, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Egypt, Algeria, Iran, Malaysia, Indonesia, and Turkey have reached the finals. The total prize is $3.2 million. The first place winner in the category of reciting the Holy Quran receives $1.3 million, while the first place winner in the category of delivering the call to prayer receives $533,000. The remaining prize money is divided among 6 other contestants.
Wow. 40,000 contestants, 80 countries. That's amazing. The competition combines good performance and the laws of melody, targeting the beauty of voice without the accompaniment of musical instruments. This is cool, man.
This so speaks to me. By the way, as an update, they have winners. Moroccan Yunus Mustafa Harbi recited his way to first place and bagged the $1.33 million prize in reciting the Quran. Britain's Muhammad Ayub Asif came second. Bahrain's Muhammad Mujahid came third. And Iran's Sayed Jassim Musavi was fourth. In terms of the call to prayer, Turkey's Muhsin Kara and Abidjan Çelik secured first and second places, winning $530K and $267K respectively. The Saudi pair, so this is interesting. There were all these very lucrative prizes. Only 2 went to Saudis. Saudi pair of Abdulrahman bin Adil and Anas al-Rahili came third and fourth, bagging $133K and $66,666,000 respectively. The prestigious competition is notable for precise judging criteria with a set of distinguished jurors, 13-member judging panel, including muezzins from the 2 holy mosques, key Quran reciters from around the globe, and famous international competition assessors. Lucian, I have to say this kind of speaks to me. I don't know why. It really, I just love this. And you know, actually it's quite beautiful, but because, so I grew up, you know, in a Baptist church here. And there's all sorts of community things that you remember. For me, I remember obviously going to Sunday school and Sunday church. But what I really loved was in the Baptist church, you'd have Wednesday dinners. So it'd be the community coming together for Wednesday dinners. As a kid, this was just, you know, you could come eat a lot and play with your friends and be in the community. I mean, these are things you remember. I mean, this Easter Sunday, we went to church, and the pastor gave a really good sermon. And I was just fired up. This is great. I love this. But when you grow up in a predominantly Muslim country like Saudi Arabia, recitation of the Quran, the call of the muezzin, I mean, this is in your DNA. This is, you know, your cultural DNA. And I think for any Muslim who hears the call or listens to a really finely recited passage of the Quran, you know, they're not only connected to the words, but they're connected to their community, which is what I'm saying. You know, when I went to Wednesday meals, you know, in my Baptist church, and so to celebrate this, I don't know, I just think this is extraordinary. We had an interesting article earlier in the news review about traditions during Ramadan. And one of them, it talked about the Musaharati, which is a person who walks and beats a drum in residential areas to wake up worshipers before the sahur meal, which is the first meal before daybreak, you know, in the morning. So it's always early in the morning. I mean, if you're a kid, how exciting would that be? Mm-hmm. You know, everyone's out in the street all night for one thing. And then you know, it's the call to the meal. Same thing. One of the things that they talked about was the fanus, the kaleidoscopic sort of colored lanterns in Cairo and Egypt. And all I'm saying is I love this competition because I think it touches Muslims. I'm not a Muslim, obviously, but I can only imagine. But I mean, if you're a Muslim, it just speaks to you because this is beautiful in their minds. This is evocative in their world. It builds a sense of community. I just think it's an awesome contest. Obviously, this got to me because I just rambled on for a bit. Well
said. No, that was fascinating. Really, really cool. Is this an annual thing that they'll be doing?
It is.
Nice. Cool.
As I understand it.
Yeah. That is fascinating. That was really good. Added value to that, Richard. That was nice. The call to prayer is 5 times a day, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and it begins with Salat al-Fijr, which is at the first of the day at like 4:50 in the morning or something, right? When the sun comes up. Yeah.
Yes. As a Muslim, I suppose it's both engaging and makes you feel a community. And I'm sure many times of the day it's kind of irritating because I'm trying, so it's, this is religion writ large or writ small.
Yella number 6. That was great, Richard. Yella number 6. Saudi Arabia completes an 8-day beach soccer training camp. Beachsoccer.com, another niche website we like to reference, reports that Saudi Arabia's national beach soccer team, under the supervision of their head coach, Brazilian Joga Zlokovic. Man,
yes.
As soon as I saw that, I was like, Joga Zlokovic underwent an intensive 8-day training camp at the King Faisal Sports City in Jazan. A total of 15 players took part in the training, and as the camp took place during Ramadan, the team sessions were held in the middle of the night from 1 a.m. to 3 a.m. The first edition of the Neom Beach Soccer Cup, which took place in Saudi Arabia back in 2019, was the first official competition of the Saudi national team, and they beat China and the UAE to finish third. Beach soccer seems like a really good workout because it's really hard to run on the beach.
Oh my.
But this is cool that this is happening in Saudi Arabia.
I didn't even know it existed. And also did you know that FIFA is a governing body for beach soccer?
I've never heard of it. No, I've heard of FIFA, obviously, but not of beach soccer. But that's crazy.
And the Beach Soccer World Cup is held every 2 years. The next one's in 2023. So I guess in the running, Bahrain, the UAE, and the Seychelles have been announced by FIFA as the 3 countries bidding to host the 2023 Beach Soccer World Cup. So I guess it does. If you're talking about beach soccer, it limits the number of countries that can host it. But I had no idea. And I think it's pretty cool. They're practicing at 1 a.m. in the morning.
That's awesome. On the beach.
On the beach, yes.
I guess my first question I would have, and I know that you probably don't know the answer, but are they like smoothing out the beach and they're starting the match and it's nice and smooth, but over the match, there's the beach gets chopped up and that adds to the intrigue of it? Or like, it's
a great question because every beach has a natural slope too.
Yeah.
And this, by the way, what was the name of the watch company? Richard.
Richard Miller
but anyway, their polo event in Alula on sand. Mm-hmm. That again, another sort of reapplication of a sport on sand. I don't know. But again, I assume it's groomed to begin with, but I guess you probably couldn't do it during the game. But, and then again, that natural slope is interesting. Yeah. This is another sport we're going to have to figure out and watch.
It just seems really, really tiring. I mean, walking on the beach is tiring. So,
in the interest, especially if Seychelles wins the host, it becomes the host. In the interest of research, we probably should go visit the Seychelles to observe this 2023 Beach Soccer World Cup.
We should. We should be ambassadors.
So maybe pick up our lucid airs on the way.
You could also deliver them while we're gone. That's totally cool.
That'd be perfectly fine.
That puts a bow on it. Richard, this was good. Always interesting. Great to finish with beach soccer, starting with U.S. Saudi relations and getting right into beach soccer. Love it. Shorter episode this week. We will have a slew of awesome guests coming up next week and in the coming weeks. So shorter episode today, but still good. Richard, thank you very much.
Always brilliant, Lucian. Thanks. So much fun.
Thank you. Back to work now.
Back to work.